Hi, welcome to our program. My name is Beth Feather, and we are recording interviews with veterans here in our local area. And today we have the honor of interviewing Ron Potter. Ron has been a faithful volunteer at the MCA TV, and he was also a veteran in the Army during the Cold War. So I'm going to welcome Ron. Ron, thanks for coming. Thanks for being on the other side of the camera today.
Glad to do it.
Now, the first question I'm going to ask you, were you drafted or enlisted when you went into the service?
I enlisted. It was a bad time when I got out of high school, and I traveled around our area here for about 4 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. Decided nothing was going to happen job-wise, so I thought might as well take care of the military obligation.
Okay. Now,
So,
what year was this then?
I went in the day after my 21st birthday, and that was in 1959.
1959.
Yeah.
Okay. You went to training.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they train you?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
And what were you trained in?
Well, I picked what one of my choices would have been communications.
Okay.
And first of all, I had basic training there, all the standard basic things, and then communications school in the same location. Mm-hmm. And
now, communication school at that time included what? Was that
well,
radio?
That again could have been two choices: wire communications or radio.
Okay.
I think radio is obsolete now because the technology we have and our vulnerability.
Right, but at that time you were trained in radio.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, wire is what I basically did.
Okay.
I thought there'd be more carryover into civilian life if I had experience in wire communications. Maybe I could go with a telephone company or something.
Sure. And now, how long were you in training then?
That was let's see.
About how
13.
long?
It was 13 weeks basic and 13 more weeks advanced, and then the communications. Mm-hmm. So.
And then your next assignment, you moved to what location?
I moved from there to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Was assigned to an infantry unit there, doing basically the job I'd been trained for. Mm-hmm. That was, at that time, it was a smaller post, but it was the headquarters for the Army Security Agency. Mm-hmm. Looked like a college campus in the front, but in the back it was basically infantry. Mm-hmm.
And so after you trained there, your assignment was to where?
Well, Fort Devens, I didn't train there. I was already trained for the job, and that was in actual
Okay, that was actual
infantry unit.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But at some point you went overseas, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
When did you go overseas then?
I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey, over the holiday. I was assigned there. Got a short leave at home mm-hmm. before that, and then they gave me orders for Berlin, Germany.
Berlin, Germany. Now, what year was that about? Is that 1960 or?
I got to Berlin, I believe it was the first few days of 1960.
1960. Okay,
yeah.
we're in the Cold War at that point.
That's correct.
And so, what was your job while you were there?
Well, still the same, MOS 310. That's the job specialty, and we basically were there as a show of strength because we were surrounded by 110 miles of communist East Germany. And although we knew if they would ever get to that point, we would be more or less sacrificed. We had a very short lifetime, but fortunately, the Russians and their East German counterparts didn't think that was worth the risk. They were always provoking us by stretching the post-war agreements to their own benefits.
Now, were you there? Was the Berlin Wall already built, or was it in progress at that point?
No,
It wasn't built at that point.
no, they just had severe restrictions on traveling to their side of the border, and for Berliners to go to West Germany, they required the issuance of a pass. There were 3 corridors there: highway or Autobahn, rail, and air. And for travel by any of those means, the citizens had to go to a building which we guarded and get a pass for that trip.
So in Berlin, there was a building that you helped guard,
Yes.
right? And that was that was kind of a government building for the West Berlin side. Is
Well,
that?
it's a very old building. I never knew the history of it. I wish I did. No one could tell me now. But it was occupied by just a few officers of the 4 powers: America, British, French, and Russians. And they would be the ones coordinating to issue passes for these citizens who wanted to travel.
So you had guard duty there then, right?
Well, that wasn't all. That was periodic. There was someone there guarding it all the time.
Right, right.
But we would do that periodically, and then in 1961, August 13th, 1961, the East Germans built the wall.
Okay, and you were still there then?
Yes, and again, this was just another thing that was completely against the agreements they'd made. They'd made near the end of the war. First of all, they let the Russians take the city themselves. I don't know if it was for their honor or because their troops were sacrificed in some cases, but they.
So what was your role then? Did you actually see the wall being built while you were there?
Well, it was while we were there, but we weren't that close to the actual border. But many times when there would be an incident after the wall was built, they would put us on alert and move us out to the border, just in the event that there would be an actual violence there. So more than once we were called for that duty, but.
So what did that mean? You were just on guard then? Is that what you did?
Well, we just stood by in full uniform and equipment, everything, our vehicles and everything, ready to move. If any
show of presence, a real show of
any
presence.
activity was needed, yes. Basically, I think you would say that was our primary function to show that we were there and that we care about it. They knew how long we would last if they tried anything, but they didn't, because that would have meant a war if they would have. So that was considered a trouble spot of the world at that time, and we were very aware of that. There wasn't anything we could do about it, so we didn't sit down and cry about it or anything.
Right. What was one of the most interesting stories that you had while you were there?
Well,
Or incidents?
well, the one incident about the Russian flag hitting the ground, and it was almost an international incident there. Turned out the flag that we put up every day was in very bad condition, and our officer had notified the Russian officer about it, didn't do anything. But one day after we put the flag up, it came back down again somewhere during the day, and our officer had to take the flag up to the Russian officer and show him that, and remind him that he'd already been warned that it would need to be replaced. So they were always looking for something that they might make an issue out of. That would have definitely been one.
Now you're talking about the building that you guarded,
Yeah.
and then that had the American flag and the Russian flag and the other flags
Yeah. Yeah.
there. So it was almost an international incident because the Russian flag touched the ground, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, there had been many incidents at the wall, at the border. Our unit set up an access point to cross the border for anyone who got authorization, called Checkpoint Charlie.
Okay.
That our troops manned that continuously, and there were many incidents there, but elsewhere along the wall, many people died trying to. East Germans died trying to cross that wall.
Now, were you on duty when some of those things occurred? Some of those incidents?
Yes. That's those were.
Can you tell me about one of them?
Well, people tried by every means. Some of them would just try to climb the wall, but they tried in every other way. They'd build spatial compartments inside a car on the other side, and cramp themselves inside there and try to get across. And then some just tried to climb the wall. In between the first barrier and the wall itself was a plowed up area where they had landmines there, and people actually died trying to cross that area, and some tunneled under the wall.
Now, was your job to check a car and see if there's extra people in there that weren't supposed to be in there? Is that part of what you did when you say you had Checkpoint Charlie there?
Well, they would submit the traffic to full checks. If there were people going from our side to the East German side, the communists wanted the same check made that they would make for their citizens trying to come over to West Berlin, but the truth was that they citizens of East Germany just wanted to get away.
Just wanted to get out. Yeah, right.
They said they built their wall to keep us out. Truthfully, it was the other way around. So, and it would happen. Obviously, people would try anything just to get across there, because they had relatives on our side that they couldn't even see anymore.
Right. Now, did you have to arrest somebody when you were on duty? Did you have to do something like that?
No, we ourselves never worked at Checkpoint Charlie. It was military police, and they had some of the tanks there too, standing by in case of major incidents. But we didn't get into that. I never fired a shot at all, except for weapons qualification.
What was your feeling as someone in the Army when you saw the Berlin Wall going up? What were you thinking or feeling about that?
I thought at first, just as many other of our troops did, that since that was a complete violation of all the agreements that had been made between the Allies, that if we would have gone in and knocked it down as soon as they started it, we might have been able to do it. I don't know, maybe this is just wishful thinking, but I wonder to this day whether we could have stopped it when it first began.
But you're thinking that as a soldier,
Yes.
just thinking, wow, we should go in and take this down, huh?
Yes, many of us thought that when that happened. They, in my opinion, did get away with a lot of incidents that they staged just to protect their own way and get more power and influence on their side.
Now, you had some pictures, Ron, of what you called when things were on display for the Berliners. What was that about? How did that work?
What would usually happen on one of our military recognition days, Armed Forces Day, or Memorial Day, or something like that, that they would put up a display of our equipment and demonstrate some of our training activities that we took part in. And this was a big thing to the Berliners. They came to see a lot of these things a lot of times. And during our time over there were many dignitaries from the States that went over there too. Of course, we didn't really like that so well because we always had to stage a parade for them.
Ah, stage a parade. Were you in those parades?
Most of them.
Most of them.
The pictures that I have of the parades.
Oh, okay.
I was on leave at that time, so they couldn't take me off leave and put me in a parade. So that's the only way I got those pictures.
So you were taking some of the pictures
Yeah.
of the parades. Okay. What other things captured your interest that you took pictures of? Because since you're a photographer, you've got quite a few pictures here.
Well, every time I got out, I bought myself a good German camera over there. Every time I had the chance to get out, I'd be photographing something, and got a chance, thanks to the U.S. Army, of taking a 10-day trip to Italy, Switzerland, and Austria.
Okay.
So I got a lot of good pictures there. Unfortunately, most of these are in color slides, which everyone was taking at that time, and it's almost impossible to get prints made from color slides now. Some of these old ones have faded and discolored and so forth, but it's the only thing that I have to show for that time. And I wish I could bring them back, but you can't.
Right.
After, 50 years or whatever this is, over 50 years, they're gone.
Can I ask, where was this picture taken? This is a picture of you in your uniform.
Yes, that definitely was not in Berlin. They don't have hills like that in Berlin. It's basically level. That was in Wildflecken, West Germany. We had to travel on a military convoy through the 110 miles and to this old German military base. We didn't even find it in World War II. It's so remote.
Oh wow!
It was never found by our troops, but beautiful place, really in the mountains. And for the firing of heavy weapons, we could not do that in the city. They have a large park there. They call it Grunwald. And when you get in the middle of that, you would swear you were in the deep woods. But the Germans love their parks. And that is actually a public park, even though it's more like a deep woods in some spots. And it would not have been safe to fire heavy weapons there, even if there were a place set aside for it. So they took us to West Germany in the mountains for that training.
And you have this picture too. You're talking about the Berlin Wall.
Well, that shows the position of the city of Berlin within the Soviet sector. We were separated by 110 miles of West German / Russian territory. 3 corridors went from Berlin to and from Berlin to the rest of West Germany, and anyone going through there was subject to the inspection of the other sides. We had to stop at the checkpoint, going into it and coming out of it for inspection. I think that's something that broke agreements also. It was supposed to be free access, but
Free access for the U.S. and all the other allies, right?
Yes, but very shortly became just the opposite.
So even as a military person, you had to go through all those inspections, right?
And when the one time I traveled by vehicle through the Autobahn, the highway, we had to stop all vehicles, open the containers and everything, and stand by like our vehicles while they inspected them.
So what other did you have any fun stories to tell while you were in the service?
Well, there's in West Berlin, as confined as it is, the people, even at that time, seemed to be fun-loving. They had carnivals and so forth. They had Oktoberfest there, similar to what was in the rest of West Germany, and restaurants and all sorts of entertainment there.
So and you had an opportunity to do some of those things as well.
Yes.
While you were in service.
During the Berlin airlift, which happened in 1948, our military, along with the British and the French, I think, participated in that, supplied the city of West Berlin with everything they needed. Everything from food to coal to lumber to everything else. During the period that lasted, and these Germans thought this was going to choke them out, starve them to death, in other words, and they would then get more control over West Berlin, but that didn't work. It was a success, and I'm sure it was very difficult to do something like that.
So what other did you develop any friendships while you were there as a serviceman?
Well, the West Berliners, most of them are very, very friendly, including some, strangely enough, some of the older ones that remembered World War II were still fighting World War II, but otherwise they'd be very friendly. You know, some of them would even invite you to dinner and things of this nature.
Did you get a chance to go to dinner with any of them?
Yes, there were residential areas almost right next door to where our barracks were.
Okay.
And
now you have some pins here. What did you get? What did you get your awards for?
That's the military insignia there from the uniform, and the one red with the white stripes is just a good conduct medal that everybody who keeps themselves straight gets. The other one is a German Medal of Occupation. Represents Medal of Occupation from World War II. We were still authorized. We were still basically considered a occupational unitary.
And it looks like you got a rifle.
That's a rifle qualification there, yes.
Rifle qualification?
That's all I did. That's something most of us would get because we were required, first of all, to qualify with the weapon we were using.
Well, to me, they're all new. So, and you have some pins here that represent...
Yes, that was the shoulder insignia there.
Your shoulder signature of your unit?
Yes, of the 6th Infantry.
Of the 6th Infantry.
That's a unit I believe had been there since the end of World War II. And that's a short history of all the campaigns they were in from the beginning of 1812 to 1961.
What would you say was the lesson that you learned, or what did you take away from your military experience?
Well, I think that even though we didn't have a really effective way to defend ourselves if we were ever pressed to do so in Berlin, that that sometimes just a psychological effect that would have on your enemy prevents them from doing something violent and severe. And that still sometimes works today. But if you, I think even now, if you do nothing at all, then that makes the enemy believe that they can get away with anything, and that's happening right now.
So you think your presence during the Cold War, the military presence there, was really significant and important at the time?
Yes. Yes, I think it had to be. It wasn't my choice to go there. I don't regret the experience, and I think it was needed at that time. And I never thought I'd see that wall come down in my lifetime.
I was going to ask you, how did you feel when you saw that come down?
Very, very, very good about that. And I recently saw part of a travel documentary on PBS, specifically about the city of Berlin. I'd like to get a copy of it, but it's amazing what differences there are now since that wall came down, and they eliminated the restrictions that they had, and now the Berlin citizens can travel to what was the other side of the wall,
right. Yeah.
And the town is open, and they're starting to rebuild what was still the ruins of World War II. In many cases, completely restored them now. And I'm not sure, but I believe the restrictions have come down about travel to West Germany now.
Sure.
In fact, they probably don't call it West Germany now.
It's Germany.
They have always maintained themselves that Berlin is the capital of Germany. It was a traditional capital. Had to move to Bonn, West Germany, for a while, but now it's all one. They've restored the famous government building, the Reichstag, which the Nazis burnt in 1933, and it's now used as a national capital, like our Capitol building.
Well, Ron, I want to thank you for stopping and for sharing your story as a veteran, and I appreciate your service. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.